all of that said, it's really cool again to see everybody here. I guess since we'll skip wants, haves, and needs, we'll go straight into speaker intro, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. So I first met Aussie Steve. Actually, he met my brother first, and my brother met him, my younger brother Joel met him at a meetup in I think Hammond or Ponchatoula area.
Joel went to meetup.
He went to one. That was the only one he ever went to, and he hasn't come to one of these except he lives in Baton Rouge now, which is even more credence. But no, actually, Joel, he came to watch me in New Orleans when I spoke at Steve's
meeting.
Yes, Jay and I were up there. First time my brother came. Anyway, I'm not salty about it. So Joel met him and got added to his buyers list, and I just saw deals coming, and I'm like, man, these are. How I know a good wholesaler is if they nail the ARV. If they tell me that the price fixed up is what I think it is based on my market research, then I know they're legit. So often I get deals that are like I saw one in Broadmoor, and everybody probably knows who I'm talking about.
325?
325 ARV in Broadmoor. Like, bro, get out.
I
Like,
screenshot that and I sent it to Leo. I go, they selling houses for over 300 in Broadmoor now?
no,
And
it
he's
doesn't
like,
matter
"No,
how big
bro."
it is. It doesn't matter how big the house is. Like, houses are not going up for over 300 in Broadmoor. I would argue that house is probably 265 ARV. Okay, so you get some neophyte investor who's like, oh man, spread on this deal looks great. And next thing you know, they're underwater. And then they never invest again because it got burned. Because they listened to a wholesaler who might not have the handle on the market. I'm not saying they're not a credible wholesaler. I'm just saying, like,
So-
325 ain't it.
I bought 4 deals
Yeah,
from the wholesaler that sent that, and the other ARVs were right.
yeah.
The problem is they're out of state and they don't know neighborhood specifics, right? So what
They're
they,
comparing Broadmoor to Terra.
so they do the same thing Renometer does. They'll do a mile radius.
Yeah.
And it's like you can't do that. You
Right.
can't do a mile radius in Broadmoor when there's Florida Boulevard right next
Right.
to it, right? It just doesn't work.
So all that said, there's nuances to like when you get these wholesale deals, right? And so like these were pegged straight. And then wholesalers will do you a solid and they'll tell you what they think it might cost to fix up. And so
that's always wrong.
yeah, unless it's also another investor, right? If I can buy a deal from a wholesaler who's also an investor, immediate credibility, right? Because I know that person is going to answer to everybody in this room if something bad happens, right? Like I know somebody who backed out on a deal the night before, a big deal, the night before, and
Haven't seen them since?
well, it was just like last week, so we'll see. Time will tell. But that said, like the hive mentality should hold him accountable, right? Because nobody wants to get drummed up in a lawsuit, right? And only people who win there is the attorneys. I know I'm going off on a tangent, but so then I go to the Bigger Pockets conference in New Orleans, which was an excellent experience, and I just happened to meet Steve again there, and it was just like so much positivity and so much energy and so much confidence building when you meet someone who's doing something that you want to do and like they're there for you. You know what I mean? Like they're not telling you, oh, bad idea, I wouldn't get involved in it. Like they're telling you, like you got what it takes. And so, became friends there, went to a mastermind meetup at a Pelicans game. Steve and I talked for hours and we had never really met before. And we've just stayed in touch since. We've talked about refining big portfolio loans, with these national lenders, and we've talked about, certain deals that we're buying and selling, in different people's markets. And so, like, he is just someone who, for me, embodies what it means to be, a good steward of real estate investing, a great person, and someone who I really, really look up to. So, man, without further ado, you want to say any nice words?
Well, I'll say, I don't know if they're nice, but they'll be funny for sure. So I totally forgot that John introduced me to Steve, and I was prepared to do his introduction. But John did a much better job than I would have. So Steve, come on out, man.
Thank you. Awesome. That was a really good intro, man. I appreciate
Thank you.
that. How y'all doing? You good? Great. Awesome. Cool. Well, thanks for coming out. I don't really have a presentation, but I've got to ask you some things I might want to talk about, but I'm pretty open for you guys to ask some questions as you go along. As I said, I'm Steve Keighery. Most people call me Aussie Steve because my last name's really hard to say and I'm straight, right? so I might just start by giving you a little bit of background to my story and where it started for real estate and investing. So, it's pretty typical dude, middle class family, working, I went to university thinking study, want to get a job, work my way up the ladder, all that sort of stuff. I thought I wanted to do business for someone else's business. And in 2000, I had a friend who just told me, like, I've got these tickets to, you heard of this Rich Dad Poor Dad guy, Robert Kiyosaki, and so I don't really know much about Robert Kiyosaki, I didn't know much about business and learning, but I just, for whatever reason, I went, okay, like, I'll go to that seminar, and damn, that changed my life. Like, legit, like sat there for a couple hours hearing Robert speak, and just the context of, how to think differently, how to think, in the cash flow quadrant, which I'm pretty sure we're all familiar with. He talked about, don't be an employee. You can be an employee, you can be self-employed, but really, if you really want to get all the benefits, you want to be a business owner in the B quadrant, and you want to use that to become an investor in the I quadrant, right? So it just changed all of my thinking. I had 2 years left on my university, studying marketing and economics. So I used those 2 years to brainwash myself. I listened to like all his tapes. My friend, his girlfriend ran the events for Robert in Australia, and like, so she had all the like full and the cassette tapes, guys, like not CDs. You remember those? So I had all the cassette tapes, and so I listened, brainwashed myself, read all the books, and I G'd myself up, and I went, I'm not getting a job. Forget about it. So I finished university, and I decided to start my own business. So I used my marketing skills. I started a marketing consultancy, helping small businesses promote their business. Through that, I met a business partner who was doing the same sort of thing. So we teamed up, and we sort of specialized in business consulting for natural therapy people, so like naturopaths, masseuses, etc. We ended up creating all these tactical marketing plans, and they ended up being real. They were tailored for each individual business, but as we went through, they started to be pretty similar because the strategy is the same, right? So we sort of turned that into a book and a manual, and we're selling those to natural therapists, and that led us to this website, which was the natural therapy pages. We found there's like 400 therapists on it, and we're like, hey, they can sell our books, to their therapists. So we spoke to the person who started that site, and we went and met him, in his garage, which was like literally he'd work in the garage, and his business partner was behind me, and he was writing a business plan for home improvement pages, which was a site for tradespeople. And they sort of said, do you do any other industries? And I said, yeah, like we do trades, we do contractors as well. So, we just sort of was real serendipitous, and we started, so we ended up like working together. He was selling our books, we were helping them with marketing and helping the therapists on their website, and we ended up merging our businesses together, and we created, the natural therapy side was limited, so we started to work on the contractor side. So very much like, you guys know like Angie's List? So pretty much the business was like Angie's List in Australia. So so we just started to grow that aggressively. So that is a two-sided marketplace, right? So this business is about connecting, you're connecting two different groups, right? So these are homeowners, people that had a home, right? And they needed a contractor, right? So I might say tradie sometimes, but that's an Aussie language for contractor, so just translate for me if I say that. But they need a contractor, right? And the contractors like want workflow, and they want work, and they don't want to have to, pick up the phone and stuff. So we, as a two-sided marketplace, our job was to make life really efficient for homeowners, so they could find a contractor and make the life really easy for a contractor, so they could connect and do business. So that's a two-sided marketplace. And why I just talk about that business model is that's also wholesaling. Like who's a wholesaler in the room? Cool. Wholesaling is a two-sided marketplace, right? You are connecting people that have an issue, sellers, right? They got a problem home facing foreclosure. They got a house that's in disrepair, and they need to sell it, right? So they're one person. They need an easy seamless transaction. On the other side, you have maybe a flipper. Who's a flipper in the room? It's got these flippers, right? So you're a flipper, and you want deals, right? You want to be able to use your craft and your tools to add value to a property and sell it. So so your job as a wholesaler is to make life really easy for the sellers, so they get that nice transaction, and to make life really easy for the buyers, so they have a nice seamless transaction. So there's a lot of similarities between two-sided marketplace and a wholesale business. So I think that taught me something before I came here. So that was the business we built. We had got to 300 staff. Was quite successful. We worked really hard. We spent a lot of time in it. But ultimately we ended up IPOing, listed on the Australian Stock Exchange. We had a value of $318 million when we listed. So that was a really proud moment. So that was a good journey. But Robert didn't just say build a business, right? He said to invest. Robert always said build a business, but use your business to buy property. So I wanted to get into property while I was building this business. It took me a little while. So who is not employed and runs a business? Yeah, quite a few of us, right? I don't know about you might be. Is it easy to get a loan? No. Okay, cool. So that was the problem I had, right? So what was really interesting to me was my wife. She was supporting me and she worked part-time for in the beginning, but also she went to the bank and she got this credit card for like $15,000, and they gave me a $2,000 credit card. And I'm like, what the hell? Like what? Like she was employed part-time, and it was because I was a director, in this company. They didn't like that I was a director, and they just, and my staff were going out and getting loans, but they wouldn't give me a loan. I'm like, who do you think is going to get fired first? It's not me, man. But that was a problem for me. So that held me back for a while on the property, and I was pretty focused on the business too. So I was distracted as well. But then throughout the stage of the businesses, we raised money at different times. We had investors who would come on board to fuel our next level of growth, and so as we got more investors, we couldn't take up all the board seats. Right? We had 5 partners, and we were all on the board. But as the first investors came in, and they joined, but we stayed on the board, so that was all right. But as more investors came on in different rounds, like you can't take up all the board seats. Those people need to be represented. So things changed for me on a property point of view when I came off the board, right? So I was no longer a director, and I realized this is actually really good, because now I went to the banks and I was like, I'm like, yeah, I'm an employee. I've been employed for years. This is my salary. I was getting a good salary at that time, so I was able to qualify for loans. So I was ready to get into the property game. But the problem was, property sucks in Australia. It sucks, man. So I live in Sydney, Australia. Beautiful, beautiful place. Great harbour, great beaches, like fantastic place. Second least affordable city in the world. Okay, and that's the last 2 years been the second least affordable city, and it's not the most expensive. Least affordable being income to value. Hong Kong's number 1. Vancouver's number 3. America doesn't kick into number 9. Like trust me. Like America's, as much as it's unaffordable, like it's not. It's not, guys. I tell you, trust me, it can get way less affordable. So that's where I lived, and that was a problem. But I wanted to invest in property, and probably the smartest thing I did, and my wife let me do, power to her, was I didn't buy a house, right? Because I lived in the second least affordable city in the world, the value of the properties was really high, and the rents were high, but relative to the worth of the property, they were actually really low as a percentage, right? So, I realized if I bought a house, it was just gonna set me back, because like Robert Kiyosaki said too, your house is not a what?
It's not an asset.
That's right. It's a liability, right? To do that, it's a liability you may want to have. It doesn't mean you don't buy a house, but just don't call it an asset. So I didn't want to have a liability. So I always rented where we lived, but rent money is dead money, right?
Yeah.
But so I paid rent money, but I started investing in properties in other areas, and I started to collect rent money, right? And where I was collecting the rent money, the rent relative to the value of the properties was much higher percentage. So I started buying properties in different areas. So anyone ever bought a property like out of their state? Only a couple of us, cool. So most people think that's bad, but I actually think it was really good because I picked the best areas, right? When I was like thinking where I want to buy, it wasn't like, oh, which neighborhood near me. It was like, what's the best area in Australia to invest? And I pulled spreadsheets, and I looked at population growth and income quartiles and all sort of stuff, and I picked the best areas to invest in that had a decent return. So I ended up buying 6 properties over 18 months. Nothing too fancy. So I did definitely research the areas, but the way I bought them wasn't fancy. It was like from the MLS. Not we call it that, but I'll call it MLS. I put down 20% conventional loan. But I never sold the properties. I actually started selling them because one thing is really important about America is you all have 30-year fixed interest debt, and most people just take that for granted, right? Do you know how many other countries have 30-year fixed debt? 0. Doesn't exist, right? So I think as Americans, I'm like, dude, go get some 30-year debt on a good asset. It's amazing. So Australia don't have that, but that's why I'm starting to sell my assets. So I bought 6 in 18 months. I just sold the 5th one like 2 weeks ago. I closed on it. I'm about to sell the 6th one, and that's because the debt isn't fixed. So I'm getting letters like every month. The rate's going up, and even worse than in America, right? Like when an interest rate is adjustable, it's not like for you guys, you mostly have there's like a cap, and it can adjust like every 6 months. There's normally these rules around it that make it pretty not that bad. In Australia, they just go up whenever. So when it's the Reserve Bank for us, but I'll say the Fed, like when the Fed increases their interest rate, literally like generally within 2 days, the banks put the interest rate up. When they drop it, takes them a couple of weeks. Funny that. But
that's how my accounts payable and accounts receivable works too.
Exactly. So but that's why I've been selling them. But I bought these properties and never really I've actually never seen them. Which is interesting. Most people think I was really crazy buying things I've never seen. But I want to make a point about that because I think sometimes when you see things, you don't see them as much. And yeah, what I mean by that, right, is like if someone loses their sight, their other senses become stronger, right? And that's how actually I felt buying properties because I never saw them, but trust me, man, I saw them. Like I had researched the market, I knew the best areas, I knew they need to be 3.2, 4.2, I knew what the rents were, I knew where people didn't like I knew all the data. I had my property managers go look at them, tell me rents I'm gonna get, like all those issues. Had property inspection reports. I saw it, if you know what I mean.
Most money I ever lost was in the neighborhood I grew up in.
For real, because it's not like it's not an educated investment because it's sort of what you're picking from a small pool. It's funny. One of my best friends, he studied property economics at university. Like he's smart on property, and he couldn't get it because he said to me, like, how are you buying properties when you don't know when like the cool cafes to eat out are? And I'm like, that's not a factor. You know what I mean? Like, and that's my point. Where you see, like, you think you know the area. Like, I know that area. Like, I got my friend who grew up there. Like, it's a good area. That's your eyes and your gut lying to you, right? When you're just looking at data, that's the truth. Yeah. So, so that was sort of how I got into property initially. Then fast forward a little bit on when we got some investment into my company. We had News Corp came and they bought 30% of our company, and there was opportunity for a secondary. Do you know what a secondary is? So basically there were more people that wanted to invest into that round than we were selling 30%, so there was more to go around. So we could sell some of our shares in that secondary. So, so I was able to sell some shares, put some money in my pocket, and, for me, I was ready to sort of do my next thing. I still got shares in this company, and I still have a connection to it, but like I was ready to move on. We'd grown to a level where we were awesome and I could replace myself. And that's really a business tip too. Like I always replace myself. I made myself redundant so many times. Like that was my whole process through growing that business. You do something, you get good at it, you gotta replace yourself. You need to hire and delegate and always make yourself redundant. I would so many times throughout that business, I would like replace myself, not knowing what I was gonna do next. And mostly I found a whole new thing. It's like, cool, got nothing to do now. All right, and then something would come up and we'd do some new growth initiative, But I got to that point where I'm like, no, I think I'm just redundant now. I think there's better people to run this company than me now. So, I did that, but going back to Robert Kiyosaki, right? Robert Kiyosaki wrote a book, Retire Young, Retire Rich. Who's read Rich Dad Poor Dad? Who's read Cash Flow Quadrant? Who's read Retire Young, Retire Rich? All right, my people. Who's read Rich Dad's Guide to Investing?
That's a big book.
It's a big
I
book.
bought it.
It's two people sterling.
I like the new one where the rich get richer.
Yes, with Tom Wheelwright. Or
yeah,
they're all. And my point in that is, Rich Dad Poor Dad, I think, has changed more lives than any book or person out there, right? Like so many people will tell you that's their starting point. And I would just say to you though, if that's everyone's starting point, why'd you finish? Like there's so much more in those books and information. So, I encourage you to go deeper in those. And that was Retire Young, Retire Rich, because that's his book. And in that book, it's when he exited his first business. He had a business partner who told him, you have to take a year off. So the book sort of starts with that, and this person convinced Robert to take a year off and do nothing, right? Not nothing, but don't think about your next move. So that was the point. Don't just let it breathe, meditate, just let it come to you, right? So I wanted to do that, So we decided to come to New Orleans for a 6-month vacation. 5 years ago. But that was the idea. My daughter went to a Sacred Heart school in Australia. There's one here in New Orleans. We organised change her for a semester. Our plan was just to come. I'm a Saints fan, so I'm like, let's go to all the Saints games. Let's eat all the good food. And about 2 months into that, I was having lunch with my wife, and she's like, I'm not leaving, Steve. Figure that out. I thought it was a good idea though. So she wanted, we were just loving New Orleans. We loved the food, culture, all that stuff. And I started thinking, hey, maybe we can move here, So I started to look at the property market. I wanted to do more in property. So I'm like, you know what? Let's do it. There was a bit of arbitrage too. Like I said, Sydney, the second least affordable city in the world. For me to move here, I hadn't bought a house yet, right? So to this point, I bought investment properties, and I'd never bought a house. I'd always rented our own home, right? So, I wanted to buy a house. I'm like, why not buy one in New Orleans? I'll get a lot more for my money, right? So there was some arbitrage in that, but also the rentals were better. The rentals cash flow way better than Australia. Just the whole market was better. So we decided to get in the property here. I still didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but we had to get a business investment visa. You had to invest for us to, because I'm not a citizen, right? I'm Australian. So for me to live here, I can get a business investment visa, which means if I make an economic impact, if I hire people, if I'm
Contributing,
contributing and not leeching, to America, then
if only they should keep that across the board.
I used to joke and say they build walls for everyone else, but they let me in. But now they don't really build walls for everyone else. So I can't really say that because it's pretty open. I don't know. I did it the hard way. So to get that visa, I need to have invested some money, right? So I bought a property in Lafayette off a wholesaler. So it's part of my business plan, it's the money I've invested, and I got that plan got approved, and I got my visa, but I didn't know what a wholesaler was. So I went, hey, the wholesalers, they got deals. Like, okay, they're the ones with the deals. Let me learn what they do, because my intention was to be a good customer for them, right? I'm like, if they've got the deals, I want to know what makes them tick, and I want to be a good customer because I want the deals. And so through New Orleans, through NOREA, New Orleans Real Estate Investor Association, they had Vina Cox-Jones speaking on wholesaling, right? So she's out of Ohio. Awesome person. Look her up.
Jones Cox.
What did I say?
The other way around.
Okay.
Yeah.
Real estate goddess, you'll find out. Sorry, Vina. So I went to a one-day course. I actually met Courtney there, and she was speaking about wholesaling, and she just, I probably didn't say, I ran the sales and marketing back home. So in Australia, my company, I did the sales and marketing. We had like 90 salespeople, would spend like $1 million a month on Google advertising. Like that was my world. And then she was talking about wholesaling, and it's like, that's sales and marketing. Like that's what I do, you know? So after that, I'm like, wholesaling is my way to get into real estate investing. Like it's my skill, you know, because real wholesaling is just sales and marketing, right? Like it's really important to understand, wholesaling is not investing. It's not investing at all. Wholesaling is sales and marketing. You know, flipping is not investing either, in my perspective. It's active income, right? Doesn't make it not good. It's just not. It's not investing. It's making money. Same as wholesaling, right? So, but I got excited because it sort of matched my skill set, and I just went, all right, wholesaling's it, and I went all in. And that's probably important because, like, man, I was excited. There's lots of really cool things in real estate. I was in America. I was learning all these new stuff, but once I figured out wholesaling was it, I just put my blinkers on, and I didn't listen to anything else. I listened to all the wholesaling podcasts, like Real Estate Disruptors, All In Wholesaling, you know, Sean Terry. I'm just like only consuming wholesaling information, and I went and did training with Vina Cox-Jones. Did that right? Jones Cox. Yeah.
At this point, I can keep reading for you, but keep going.
So I went and did her training in Ohio. I've done a few of hers, and so like I really like learned her system, and I went all in on wholesaling. It actually took me 6 months to do my first deal, right? So that was a while, but I did my first, second, and third deal in the same week, right? And that's important. So yeah, that's a really important message for you guys who are starting. You can definitely do it faster. People have done it way faster than that, but just it took me a while. And when I got those 3 deals in the same week, it wasn't that I finally did it right. It wasn't that at all. It was just all my effort compounding. It just came back. And from there, after that, I had a pretty consistent flow, you know. So you know, if you're getting into wholesaling, just like you gotta just keep pushing. Wholesaling's easy, like losing weight is easy. Does that make sense? Because losing weight's easy, right? Freaking simple. Eat less calories than you burn. Go to the gym every day. It's like it's really, really easy to lose weight, but it's hard to do, right? And that's wholesaling. Wholesaling is easy and it's simple. Like it's a simple concept, but it takes effort, consistent. You know, you got to do that. You got to go to the gym. You got to do your reps. You know, and you got to take those that first time you go to the gym, you can barely lift anything. You sort of look pathetic. You know, it hurts for days. You got to go through that. You got to do that. You know, but if you keep going, you'll build muscle. It'll get easier. You know, and it'll all work out. So definitely that's, I think, an important lesson. And then, you know, like for me, I learn a lot from Vina, and I learn a lot from like lots of the podcasts I listen to, but I mix it with my own stuff, right? It's New Orleans, right? You got to make a gumbo. You got to mix in your own ingredients. So, you know, I had a disadvantage in that I was Australian. You know, I was like, oh, you're trying to sell your place onto Chopachula Street? You know what I mean? So I had a disadvantage, right? But like, forget it. I'm gonna make my advantage. I'm Aussie Steve. Yeah, I'm like that was my disadvantage, but I'm a use it because that's who I am. You know, and you know, so I would say to all y'all, like, find your own thing. You know what I mean? Like you want to listen, you want to learn, but you want to mix in your own little ingredient. And so that's sort of what I did in my wholesaling business. You know, I had an advantage in that like I knew sales and marketing, so like I mixed in stuff I just knew and have done, you know, instinctively in the past. But then once I focused on wholesaling, I started to, you know, do some volume and transactions. Then I kept going on the Keighery trend of he always spoke about getting an infinite return on investment, right? I know Sterling has infinite returns. So he always talked about doing syndications, really. So he would do them with Ken McElroy, where he would put money into a deal. You know, they'll do a value add, they'll refinance out, pay back the capital. Now they're getting the infinite return on their investment. So I wanted to do that. So I invested in a syndication first. And that was good. They should be fun. I should get my money back soon, I think. But it's good to pay me every time. Like it's good investment. But what I realized was, I learned about the BRRRR. You know, because I'm like that's cool and that works. But and it's particularly if you're passive, like that's a good.
You're the only person I've ever met who learned how to BRRRR from syndications.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing.
No, I get it, but everybody else in the world learns what syndications are from BRRRRs.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. So, but then when I learned about BRRRR, I'm like, it's being active. Again, so I'm active, right? Like, so I'm like, BRRRR, like I can just buy it myself, take me 6 months to refinance, get my money back in 6 months, and now I own an asset myself. Like, I'm just gonna do that, right? And it was already marketing, so like it mixes with wholesaling, right? So, I started BRRRRing, so I started taking down my own deals. So I'd been wholesaling for about a year, gave me a lot of confidence. I learned a lot. You know, I love wholesaling too because like I listen, man. Like you said, like it's important to get your deals right. It's important to know information, and so like I learned so much from all the buyers I worked with. Like I'm working with like, some of the smartest, most active investors at the time in New Orleans, right? And I learned a lot, and I learned they're all different. Like they're all got different strategy, you know, and I just watched them, learned, and then I became confident. So I started buying deals myself, the real easy ones. so I'm not a rehabber. So I think I said this, like I'm actually not a property guy. I love property. Like property, I think is amazing. I think it's the best asset out there. But it's not about the property. It's about the debt, the leverage, the, you know, like the 30-year fixed debt, you know, against inflation. Like for me, it's like the asset is beautiful. I don't care about the house. Like I've got no HGTV syndrome. I don't I'm not trying to make anything look beautiful. I can barely change a light bulb, so like I'm not really. I haven't really got property skills, right? But I love property. So for me, my marketing and sales skills were what brought me the deals, and then I could keep the real easy ones that were still at a wholesale price, but didn't need that much work, you know. So I started to keep deals. Started BRRRRing. That was fun. Got a lot of time too, man. I was doing refis, 30-year DCSR loans. I was getting like 4.25%, 4.75%, and everyone thought it was crazy. Everyone's like, dude, wait, dude, you can get 3% loans at the time. And for me, I was like, it's in an LLC. I can do as many as I want. There's no limit. Like, it's 30-year fixed. Like, I'm pretty good at 4.75%, and trust me, like everyone now wants my loans, and I thought I was crazy getting. But those 30-year fixed debt is beautiful. Being able to get all your money back, get a cash return. I don't think I'll ever sell those assets, those BRRRRs I've got, you know, because the BRRRRs get better over time, right? And I think people don't appreciate the length of time. The benefit of it, because you all know inflation exists, right? You all know your money's getting less. Like, I think everyone knows that now because inflation's been so bad. But let's say if you know, because I don't think property really increases values generally. It just inflates. Like, people get a little bit. They get into like, yeah, my property went up this much over 10 years. It's like most of the time
just went down.
Exactly, your dollar just went down, right? Because think about it, if you buy a house and let's say in 10 years it's doubled in value, like that's great, right? But if the price of dinner doubled, if the price of petrol doubled, if the price of everything else
And
doubles,
your salary
and your
stays the
salary.
same.
it hasn't doubled. Your tax rate's gone up because they're calling that a profit, right? They're calling that a profit, but it's not. You know, so you've saved yourself though because your dollar hasn't. You've preserved your wealth, but when you add debt onto that, when you have a 30-year fixed debt, in 10 years' time, your property value's doubled, but your debt is the same.
Yeah.
That's the arbitrage. That's the magic.
It's not just the value of the property that's doubled, it's the rent.
Because the rent's inflated, so the revenue's like the value inflated, the rent's inflated, like, but your main fixed costs, like, yes, your taxes are probably inflated, and there's some expenses, insurance, so some of your expenses are inflated too. But your biggest expense is your debt expense, and that stayed the same. But even better, in 10 years' time, how much of that payment do you think is principal versus interest?
Majority.
A lot, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's another thing a lot of investors just don't appreciate, right? That amortization schedule on your loan is your friend.
Wait. I think y'all are both confused. The first 10 years of a 30-year mortgage is not majority.
It's not
No,
majority.
you said
That
after.
later.
You misunderstood.
No, I didn't say 10 years. No, I didn't say 10 years. It was but every month is increasing, right? Your first month is the highest portion of interest, and then it starts to slowly decrease, and then it comes to a point where it flips over, and you're paying more principal interest. And yeah, it is more like 15 years. They start to flip, and then the last years like pretty much all principal, right? So that's the magic, right? And the problem is the trap. Everyone falls for it because on average, people in their own personal residence, on average, they like buy a new home every 7 years. So it's like you're spending the 7 years, you're paying all the interest, the bank's doing good. Now you buy a new one, you start again.
Right.
The power's the end. Like and I just don't think enough people talk about that. Like I just like that's the power, right? So I got all these 4% interest rates. I'm sticking to the end, y'all. Like I'm not selling that. Forget about it. But I'm buying less right now because the rates are higher. So it's a little harder right now. And the prices haven't come down, so it's a little bit harder to make work right now. But yeah, so and I want to make a point in here, right, on BRRRRing and wholesaling and I just want to make this point about like a wholesale business. Again, wholesaling is sales and marketing, right? So it's not investing. I buy my BRRRRs, that's investing. They're separate LLCs. So I do investing and I do wholesaling. I think a lot of mistakes that people make is like a lot of wholesalers, they're trying to hustle out a few deals. Like I'm doing wholesaling so I can get into flipping. I'm doing wholesaling so I can get into this. And it's like, man, if you're good at like, if you're the HGTV person that does not really a sales and marketing person, then don't even wholesale at all. Just buy wholesalers. Don't bother. But if you actually are doing sales and marketing, you're successful in wholesaling, why the hell would you stop? Right? Like, keep it going. That's an engine. There's a power, right? For me, there's a power that I'm wholesaling and investing. They work together. They help each other, right? And because if I was only buying and not wholesaling, right? I couldn't spend that much money on marketing because I'm getting all these leads. I'm not monetizing. Because I wholesale, I can spend much more on marketing because I can monetize any deal if it's right. Anything that is the right price, I can take down. I just might assign it.
I think there's been a lot of like kind of confusion fluff in the marketing space lately about that concept, about passive income, because people want to sell the dream of passive income. I'm gonna buy 10 rental properties, you got passive income. Go invest in this syndication, we'll send you passive income. It's not enough to live off of. Like pairing an active strategy, whether it's an accounting firm, a wholesaling business, a property management company, you know, whatever, a lending, pairing some form of active income with buying long-term income producing assets is really the only thing that I think is a sustainable model.
And you know,
because I bought a lot of rental properties and I ain't never been able to live off of rental income.
But what's beautiful are the
rental income?
What's beautiful
That's
too.
important.
Yeah, the redundancies though, like that's what's beautiful about this, because like the same way that you bought or that you built your business, right? Just like you said, transferred to your wholesale business, and yet investors, we're all business owners. You know, we own an asset. It's a house, but it could very well be a piece of equipment that we turn around and rent out. You know, we have to worry about insurance, we have to worry about taxes. And so, I mean, that's honestly what gave me my confidence to start an accounting firm, you know, at 30, and I really had no idea what I was doing, and I still don't, honestly. but I had so much confidence from learning how to invest in real estate, right? And dealing with banks, and, you know, understanding how insurance works, and understanding how subcontractors work, and how, you know, I'm not going to agree to, you know, I'm not going to pay you up front, right? Like I'm just little tricks of the trade that correlate. And so for me, that's I think could be a takeaway for many of you folks in here is you know, when you do get into investing, understand that you're a business owner, and understand, like just like Sterling did, how you might be able to build that cash flow side that Steve has as well. And it could be something so simple as construction. I mean, there's just so much opportunity out there, even in a down market, for you to really like keep hammering away. Like Napoleon Hill talks about the guy who was 3 feet away from striking gold, and he turned around and he sold that land. Next folks come in, you know, they hit gold, and he's like, man, that's not happening to me again. And then that dude like never forgot how bad he felt that he missed out on that, and he built an amazing insurance empire and like became like a billionaire back in the 30s, right? And that's probably a little bit of exaggeration, but all that to say that the skills, man, are so transferable. And so to me, that's really been the beauty of the gift that keeps giving, where we're at now.
And skills, I mean, you always want to skill up, and skills transfer, and they monetize them, and yeah, you definitely need active and income as well as your passive income. Yeah. But I love BRRRRs. I love the fact that it's like an infinite return on investment, like your cash on cash return is infinite. But yeah, it doesn't make much today, right? Like, you know, buying a bunch of BRRRRs isn't gonna like retire you today, right? But it's gonna, and doing a bunch of flips or doing a bunch of wholesaling isn't gonna make you rich today either. It's gonna make you some cash, but it's not gonna make you rich. Over time though, the 10-year, when you start getting when the inflation gap, you know, between your debt and the inflating rents and value, that's when you start making money. You know, when it starts amortizing, you start building all your net worth up. Like, it takes time, so you need to make some active income to let that thing cook. You know, and for me, an active income could be flipping or wholesaling. You know, but so for me, my point is, if you're good at wholesaling, if you're good at sales and marketing, like, keep that business, man, make it work. You know. So I think they really work well together. And personally, me, like AC asked me if why don't you flip your deals? I'm like, because flipping is just active income, right? For me, like, flip doesn't make sense because it's not my skill. Like, my skill is sales and marketing. So for me, a wholesale is in my wheelhouse. A flip, it's the same sort of money as wholesaling, right? Yes, you're gonna make more, but it's gonna take more time. It's
and
active.
More risk, right?
Yeah. Well, which isn't like, but if you're good at flipping, right? Absolutely, like that's really good. It's just do what works for you. But you don't need both.
I know about 10 wholesalers got a better deal than I did this year.
But then when you went outside your wheelhouse, what happened?
I've made some mistakes, y'all.
No, you're like, oh well, maybe I'll wholesale some of these, right?
Yeah.
But what did it become for you?
It was a headache. It's like something different, you know. Like, it's out of my process, you know. So I lost money on 2 deals, and I bought them. One of them was gonna flip, and then I freaked out when the glitz and the English bond market went on like stuff is, and I sold it, and I lost money. But you know, I was out of the house, so you know that sucked. But you know, so I think stay in your wheelhouse. But I'm telling you what my wheelhouse is. Your wheelhouse might be different. I'm not saying do what I do. I'm saying do what works for you, you know. But
I have a question.
Yeah.
So what type of marketing channels are your strongest that you
My strongest skill or the best channels?
The best channel for you that work for you for wholesale.
So I have a branded approach to marketing, which is a little different to most, right? So I'll do a lot of online, I'll do direct mail, I'll do cold calling, but I'm also going to send them all to my website, right? Because my website sells. My website like builds trust, and because it's not just the marketing channels. I think a lot of people are obsessed with what's your channel, like that's sort of important, but like what's your process? How do you answer the call? How do you speak to them? How do you follow them up? How do you get the information from them? How do you build rapport? How do you get them to trust you? Like that's actually the magic. So the leads are important, but it's like you can do the same lead thing. It's like just think about the experience. Again, this is going back to two-sided marketplace, right? And this is what I'm trying to make the point. Make it seamless for your seller. Respect your seller, right? Think about what they need, give them what they want, like reduce the frictions for them, and they'll work with you. And then on the buyer side, respect your buyers. And this is really important right now. All you wholesalers, the season has changed. Okay, so the challenge in building two-sided marketplace, I didn't mention this, right? So two-sided marketplace, it's actually really hard because you've got two target markets. From us we have the contractors and the homeowners. And in wholesaling you have the sellers and the buyers. And they're always out of balance. They're always out of balance, right? Because, how are you going back to my, the high pages, it's like, how are you going to get a homeowner to come to your site, look for a contractor when you've got no contractors? Doesn't work, right? But how am I going to get a contractor to come and advertise on my site when I don't have any homeowners? Like there's a balance, right? And they're always out of balance. You need to grow it. And wholesaling is the same. And my point in that is the balance was with the sellers, and the buyers are out of balance, right? So there was the sellers are more important more recently because the deals are so dry. Like Sterling was saying, where the deals are, like everyone was begging, looking for a deal. There were none around. So, the buyers were less important, right? But if it's a two-sided marketplace, never disrespect your other side because you're going to need them, right? And, if you're a wholesaler that didn't treat your buyers so good when it was easy, if you auctioned up the price too much, if they said they'll buy it, but then you're like, I got a better deal over here, you're not respecting your buyer side, and that's going to bite you, right? And right now, the buyers are more important. The actual buyers are more important than the deals right now. Because the buyers are still buying. The good buyers are still buying. But they want a better deal. And, so you need to look after those buyers. You need to communicate with them. You need to build that side of the funnel. Because just having a deal isn't enough right now. And I say that too, I do a lot of joint ventures with people who might bring a deal and I'll find a buyer. And I'll do it the other way around too in markets that aren't my market. I learned a really valuable lesson. I had this out-of-town wholesaler. He's actually a really good wholesaler. He just wasn't local. So he had a deal and he couldn't move it. And he's like, "Will you joint venture with me?" I'm like, "Yep." Let me make sure it's a deal first. 9 times out of 10, it's not a deal. It's like, "Will I joint venture with you?" Yes. That's not a deal. I can't send that to my buyers. But he's like, that's actually a deal, dude. Yeah, okay, I'll joint venture that. And I sent it out. I found a buyer. And the buyer, you know what he said to me? He at the closing, he's like, I saw this deal 2 weeks earlier, but I didn't really look at it. But when you sent it, I looked at it because I knew that buyer. I knew him. I've done deals with him before.
That's 100%. I do that all the time. I'll scroll past the deal without giving it a glance, and then somebody I trust sends it to me, and I'm like, oh well, shit, maybe I better look.
So that you need to look after the buyers because you need to. It's not just like, hey, I got a deal. And there was some arrogance, I think, of a deal, but you got to respect your buyer. You got to make sure it's a deal. You got to don't send deals that aren't deals because they will. If they mentally aren't into you or don't know you, they're probably not going to look at the deals. It's a harder battle. So that's my tip to the wholesalers in the room. It's actually the season to work with your buyers, get closer with them, look after them. Don't be greedy. Don't be greedy. Or I don't know. There's different ways. I must say, I probably leave a lot of money on the table sometimes, because I'm not auctioning up the price. If I have a good buyer who's happy to pay the price that works for me, Like, I'm closing. Let's go. Like, let's go to the closing table ASAP. I'm not trying to get more, right? And that, you could say that's wrong, you know, because I think some people extract more value out of it. But personally, that's the way I do it. But now it's important because I've done that in this market, you know, and because I've done that, I've worked with really good buyers, you know, because those buyers who auctioned up to the highest price, are those buyers around now? They're probably not, right? Because they're paying too much, you know. So that's my tip. And to the buyers in the room, there's power right now. Like if you're a cash buyer, cash is important. There's good deals out there. There hasn't been deals for ages, but they're there. You know, you can negotiate and you can get good deals. So I'll definitely say that. Cool, yeah. And then I mean, also for me too, I think it is creative investing season. You know, I've been doing a lot more deals with Courtney, Fricky, because you know the BRRRRs are harder, the interest rates are higher, but the interest rates from the subject to properties, they're the same, they're old, right? So I think that's an important season coming up. Seller financing, new negotiating terms, you know. So I think that's going to be an important step in this market, you know. So watch out for that. We spoke a little bit about, you guys both mentioned the bad market. Yeah, it's a bad market, but I mean, it's not that bad. I've got a theory. Here's my theory in the market, right? Property is in a recession now. The property market is deep in recession, I believe, right? And I'm characterizing that by transaction volume. Transaction volume fell off a cliff in June last year, right? If you're a realtor, who's a realtor? Yeah, it's hard, right? Who's a title company? Who's a inspection service? Like anyone that relies on volume, like you're hurting. Like the prices haven't fallen. People are like, hey, the prices haven't fallen. Property hasn't crashed. And it's true, the prices haven't changed. But if you're anyone that relies on volume, you're hurting right now. Mortgage brokers, like, man.
Well, the price has gone down. People just, the transaction, the lack of transaction volume hasn't shown that data yet, right? Like, I've got a house that I want to sell for 500 grand. Now, I could sell it for 400 grand today, but I don't want to, so I'm not gonna. But if I did sell it for 400 grand, well, then we'd have a transaction on the record that said a new comp that prices have gone down. I think there's a lot of that going on. I know there's a lot of that going on.
The seller's holding on for dear life.
How do you know these stories?
Ask me how I know. Yeah.
Okay, so Sterling, that's why there's power in these rooms, because all that data comes from data sources that is a lagging indicator of what was happening, right? You have to wait for that seller to sell, that sale to go into the public records, to then be collected from a data source, right? That's why these rooms are very powerful, because you can talk with people and say, hey, what are you seeing right now? You know, I mean, I know you and I have talked. I've talked to my good friend Dominique on the West Bank. He flips 10 to 15 houses at a time. You know, talking with different people and saying, hey, what are you seeing? I'm talking to property managers. Hey, what are you seeing with your rents? How quick are things renting? Are they renting for what you're projecting, or are you having to lower rents, give rent concessions? Being in with people who are in the trenches, that is my favorite place to get data. Don't get me wrong, data from like certain sites and things are helpful, but it doesn't say what you're talking about.
And it'll come through if you decide to sell that price or you wait it out. And I definitely take that point. But the transactions are really low, and it's really, I mean, obviously interest rates, right? And it's insurance in New Orleans particularly. You know, so like I do a lot of business in New Orleans. Getting more into Baton Rouge now, but in New Orleans, insurance is tough, way worse than interest rates, right? Because insurance is up a lot, and that's a bigger hit every month than just the interest rate. So it's definitely, but my take is the property market's in recession right now, like deep in it. The economy's been surprisingly strong. It's actually like, it's pretty damn impressive how strong it's been. I think that'll change personally. I actually hope it'll change, because I think the worst scenario is if it is this no landing and soft landing, like, because that's a world of these rates going for a long time. But
the issue there, and this is a much broader conversation, but the issue with an actual economic recession just versus a property recession is then on top of not being able to sell our houses for what we want, we won't be able to get the occupancy that we need. Rents will have to go down because unemployment will rise so much. So like, just like a rising tide raises all boats, so does a lowering one.
Yes and no, right? So I think personally, if the economy gets worse, which I think it will at some point, like I think the economy will get worse. When it gets worse, people will lose jobs. right? People losing jobs is bad. It
And how they
affects
gonna
income.
pay rent?
They're going to have way more trouble putting any money to a victim, right? But by the same token, and particularly in property values, so and that's also why I don't like top tier properties. I like median or below because they're generally fine because they come down. It's the people at the top that get lost. But also, what'll happen though? Let's say 1 million people lose their job. Terrible economic outcome, right? Like, and for those 1 million people, it's not a joke. Like that's hard. But if that was to happen, they would drop interest rates, right? For every 1% interest rate drop, they say 4.5 million more people qualify to buy a house, right? So my sort of running theory is at some point it's going to get real bad, and when it gets real bad, that is you're like this far from when it's going to get real good for property, because I think property's first in a recession. I think it's going to be first out.
It's like the rodeo. You just got to stay on long enough.
You're gonna stay on long enough, yeah. But the point, it will be the first out. So when everyone's crying, when it's bad, and when you might be scared,
Where
like,
you might be hurting and you might be crying, very real. There are like investors. It's the idea of when the tide goes out, we'll see who's swimming with their trunks on. But when the tide comes out, what's coming, right? And a lot of people are struggling to hold on, you know,
But when
flips, investing, things like that.
when the tide goes out, you often find lots of fish and crab and food on the floor. It's easy to get. You know what I'm saying?
It's scary.
It's scary. So what I'm trying to say to this room is when things get bad, don't be scared. Be ready. Like when things get be smart, be cautious. You know what I'm saying? But when everyone is freaking, that's actually a time to be level head. That's the time. Keep coming to these meetups. Like that's gonna be good. So yeah, I'm more scared that if it doesn't break, that's gonna be longer, and that's a slow choke.
Well, you know, something that's so obvious, but that even I don't really realize is you never know you're in a recession until you're out of it. Right? And so, you know, being able to really think about where we're at currently and make decisions, you know, as you know, with that info in mind is huge. And you know, to your point about transaction volume, I mean, it's obvious, right? And my hope though is that as fast as these rates went up or went down and then came right back up, that maybe the first sign of good news, you know, that we'll see rates come down faster than they did in, you know, pre-COVID, right? Like, I mean, COVID obviously is crazy, and you can't compare anything to that. But I just feel like with the velocity of information and the ability to, you know, do deals and borrow money and all of these things in the new electronic age, I'm hopeful that when things do start getting better, they're going to get better faster than they used to prior to COVID. That's my hope. What do you think about that?
Well, no, I think yeah, because I think there's pent-up demand, and that's actually my point I'm trying to say, right? The fact that transaction volumes are so low, like they're abnormally low, right? People haven't decided not to sell and move houses, and like that the interest rates have gone up. They can't afford to, right? So there's a lot of people that when those rates start changing, when they can, they're on the sideline. It's like a spring, you know. So that, and there's going to be pain, but for everyone that's having pain, there's these people who I'm still employed, like my job's safe, and now the interest rates are lower. Let's make that move. So that's coming at some point. No time for it, but and really all I'm trying to say is don't be scared when it gets scary. Don't be scared when it gets scary.
I mean, when the rates are like they are now, it's a lose-lose situation to move, right? You can't sell your house for what you want to sell it for, and then you're going to have to pay a lot more monthly for the house that you buy to move into. So, to your point, it's just pent-up demand. Everybody's just frozen in time.
Yeah.
So I've got a deal right now that I can get a stellar deal on, but the deal won't ink until I can help the seller find a house. And a big part of that is their loan in New Mexico. I just texted a lender, like, hey bro, he's a competent lender, can you lend in New Mexico? Because if I can get them a deal on a loan on a house in New Mexico, I can ink this great subject to deal on a legacy property for my portfolio. But a big part of that is I have to solve new problems right now.
Yeah. Most buyers are sellers, right? Like if you're a homeowner, you're an investor. So I mean, I've got probably one more bullet point I want to hit on those bullet points, and and that's build outlets. So something actually. I'm actually quite an introverted person, and you know, I found when I came to America, right, we knew zero people. Like I said, we came for vacation. Like we didn't come to see anyone. I knew zero people. The first friend I made was the Airbnb hosts at the property we're at, and so I had to get out of my comfort shell. I had to network. I had to meet people. I had no network, so I made a network, and at the time I was reading the GoGiver book. Anyone read the GoGiver book?
Yes.
Like one of the best books. So I found myself, GoGiver is just really just help. It's like help. Don't be transactional. Just help people without asking for anything in return. Like the universe pays you back. It's not about I help you and you do X. Because I'll just help you because I help you. But if I do that, just the universe fixes you up, right? So I found knowing no one. Not having a network, I just got out to all these meetups. I met Courtney in meetups online. Like I started meeting people, just not being transactional. Help you, you know, you can help me, I help you, and that's been a real key to me being successful. Just building those relationships, and you know, you need to have allies. Like Sterling said, you need to come to these rooms. You need to be able to call the people and ask those questions. So I actually think that's the most important part about investing, whether you're a wholesale buyer, whatever. Property is a people business, you know. So you're in these rooms, awesome. So you guys are doing the right thing already. But keep doing that, keep networking, keep helping people. Don't be transactional. I have this saying: the more deals you do, the more deals you do. I've done a bunch of deals where I haven't made much money at all. I've done a deal. I wholesaled a deal once, one of my early ones. I made $0 assignment fee, $0, right? But I did it. I closed the deal because I had my numbers wrong, and I could actually get it, but there's no room for me. But I did it because why wouldn't I? Just why would I tell this seller who I'm trying to help, no, we're not going to close this deal because I'm not making any money, and why am I not going to give my buyer this property, right? So I did that deal. Probably the most important deal I did. When I did that, I sold more deals to that buyer. I met a lot of them. I had the numbers wrong, so I had to show it a few times. I learned the most. It was the best. It was actually the most important. I learned so much. So I learned all the things I didn't know. I met so many buyers and people, and so just don't be greedy. Just help. Just do deals. Just get out there, and you know, more and more will come back to you. I find.
I had a wholesaler give me a deal one time that he was going to make $0 off of. Similar situation. He just wanted to help the buyer. So I showed up to closing with a $3,000 check for him.
Should have thought of Sterling. That's a good lesson. So that's sort of the points I wanted to hear. I'm happy to ask questions. I don't know how much time we got.
Yeah, let's do some Q&A. Anybody have any questions? I've got some in mind if nobody else does. No? Okay, I'm interested in your team. Okay, your processes, right? So you're doing a ton of deals. Can you talk a little bit about your staff and how much you had to pour in to train them?
We're pretty lean. Training's a lot, but we're actually really lean. So I'll answer that. And on that point, when I first was setting up my wholesale business, right? When I was going all in on wholesale, I remember I was saying I'm just trying to learn it. I was listening to lots of people in Phoenix, in Florida, these big wholesaling outfits, and I was like, I can do that. Like I said, I had 90 salespeople. That's actually my skill set too. And I first thought I was going to do that, but then I realized that I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to have a lot of staff. I didn't want to, I've created a big company, and I loved every moment of that journey. That journey was awesome, and feeling it was ups, downs, you know, and I loved it. But I don't want to do that again, so I didn't want to. So I became less aggressive. I'm pretty happy to just I don't want to have a lot of people to have to look after. I just want to make enough money, build a portfolio. So I'm not as aggressive as I once was, but so I have a full-time acquisition specialist. So she works all of calls. She'll make outbound calls. She'll answer inbound calls. She's follow-up. She's really seller-facing, full-time, local, New Orleans staff member. I have an inspection person who will go out and look at properties for me, take photos, you know, sort of boots on the ground. I have a VA who pull data for me, pull comps. That's really it. I do dispositions. So, you know, I do I did have a goal to hire a dispositions person last year, replace myself, but I just didn't want to. I must say, like, it was a goal, but I sort of enjoy it. I enjoy meeting the buyers. I'm actually just not personally ready to give that up. But my next role will be to hire a dispositions person, then sort of step up more, just looking after marketing, general manager sort of thing. So I would hire my next hire would be a dispositions manager, but I'm pretty comfortable just cruising at that right now.
Yeah, and this is kind of, it's a vulnerable point for me, if I'm being honest. So, I would say for the last 2 years, like, I've been all about money, right? Like, trying to make as much money as I can and, grow my wealth. And I'm starting to, realize that, the more people I've listened to, the Ed Milet's and, like, the people who have done it before, they talk a lot about, the things that they so miss out on, right? And so for me, I'm really starting to reevaluate, like, not chasing that dollar so much. And it sounds to me like you're kind of in a little bit of the same boat. Like, how do you navigate the hustler mentality, because you lived it for so long?
Really good point. You don't want to lose track of why do you want to be wealthy? Like, if you just get wealthy and build wealth, but don't, like, you have a miserable family life and don't have free time, what's the point? But there's a whole work-life balance thing, right? And what the work-life balance isn't like, unless you're like, if you want to be an employee, E-quadrant, you can probably have, a good work-life balance. If it's not too stressful a job, you can just go home and, but then you're working for like 65 years, right? Which sort of sucks too. So maybe not. But like, there is no work-life balance where it's like, I don't need to do too much work, I can have it both. Work-life balance is actually like going between hyper, like, I got no life, working my ass off, to I'm chilling over here, right? And so I think, like, I used to get in the office like 7 in the morning. I'm prepping for the day. I'm getting things ready for my team. We're staying there until we hit our targets. We'd stay to 7. We had fire alarms going in our. We used to get a lot of false alarms. So literally, there's fire alarms going at 7 a.m. We're chasing one more sale. No one's leaving. So it's probably pretty bad. But we didn't die. So I did that, and I just get home and fall asleep on the couch, dude. So I've had really uneven times, but then I took a year off. Took a whole year off and just did nothing for a year. Came to New Orleans, and and I think there's seasons. Yeah. And sometimes there's a grinding season, and there's particularly when you're younger and you're starting out, if you sacrifice today to chill out tomorrow, I think that's generally what you have to do. Mm-hmm. If you want to really chill out, you got to really work hard now. But don't lose yourself. And I think that was my trick, because I've done that. I'm lucky. I made some money doing that, so like I have some capital. So I sort of tricked. I didn't want to do it again. I'm like, yeah, I don't need to do that again. Like so it's tricky. It's personal.
It's admirable though, right? Because so often you find the billionaire who's on his third marriage, you know what I mean, and who's probably wishes, like, for instance, I know of one who started Popeyes, or let's say, and the theory is, or the thought is, that like he never loved anyone more than he loved his first wife, and so but all that to say though, like, I think it's important just for in a room like this where, like, at the end of the day, we're all here to build wealth, and but I think that if we could really not keep wealth front and center, but more importantly keep relationships front and center, and keep like general happiness front and center, right? You chase so many deals, and you make the deals, and you make money, and you're like, man, for what?
Let me use an analogy. Who likes Drew Brees here? Hands up. Who likes Tom Brady? Not only less hands. Don't be Tom Brady, be Drew Brees. And what I mean by that is, look at Tom. I don't know all these personal details, but like he was meant to leave football. He was meant to retire. He had his wife. He went back for one more season, and his marriage fell apart. You know what I'm saying? Like. Don't push it. Don't lose. Don't lose the wife.
Don't push too hard.
I'm being my wife. She was 17 when I met her. I was 19. we've been together through everything. She worked when I was starting my business and supported me. You know, like, yeah, I'm not gonna lose that. I need to be conscious of keeping that. You know.
Yeah. I'm sorry to go off on a tangent, but that was good. Go ahead, man.
I have a question. How do you structure your businesses? Do you have a C Corp or do you have LLCs for every property?
Every property, hell no. John might like that. But I have an LLC for my active income. So my wholesaling business is an LLC. And if I have a wholesale, anything that's like active is in that LLC. I have two main, for the properties I own by myself, I have two separate LLCs. So I sort of went a hybrid approach of like, I split them. So there's like a bit of asset protection.
Yeah, you group them.
But I grouped them, and I got really good insurance. I'm actually a mentor. In my head, I was going to do like 10 properties in each LLC. I sort of passed that. I can't be bothered doing the third. I do profit first as well, so like I don't think I want to do that. And I do like I have a partnership with Courtney. We have LLCs that my active LLC owns 50-50, and we have an active LLC too. So I'm just
so holding and active one.
yeah. So just an LLC, but I'm not an accountant. I speak to John y'all. But don't mix your rentals with your active. That's really the main. Like don't mix those at all. Yes.
When you speak about asset protection and you having your wholesale business and LLC, is that strictly for asset protection or for like employee protection?
It is a bit of asset protection, but it's also tax stuff because active income is taxed higher and than long-term income. So if you're mixing your rentals and active income, it could just be messy. Again, I don't know, John.
Yeah. So I would say to that, there's a bunch of, obviously LLC protections are big. Oftentimes, it'll help you with insurance as well, and not in terms of like getting a lower rate, but in terms of finding more people who will insure you. It also gets important to have an LLC whenever you do hire staff, right? Because that LLC is going to be tied. You've got to report payroll taxes 3 places: IRS, state, and then also unemployment. That's the Workforce Commission. So it just gives you that validity as well, especially if you go get a loan too, right? Hey, I've got an LLC, I've got a separate set of books, I need some transactional funding because I've got 3 wholesale deals under contract and I can only afford to take 1 down. So, and of course, also you've got the liability protection too. If Steve, jacked up his repair costs, if he told a buyer it would take 30 and he knew it would take 75, maybe there could be a lawyer who would come back and say, Steve, you misled me, and then that lawyer would only be able to go after the assets that he has in that business. Although this is worth saying, and I know we're going over on time, there are more things that you have to do to keep an LLC from being able to be pierced in a lawsuit than just have an LLC. Okay, you have to keep annual minutes, and you have to keep a company book, and that company book has your policies and things of that nature. And so, and you really aren't supposed to commingle personal funds with it either. Okay, because what happens is, all it takes is one attorney who looks at your books and says, you guys are commingling funds. You're saying you're an LLC, but you're not operating like one. So judge, I want you to tell every, rule that this LLC is void. And the judge says, okay, I agree, this LLC is void. And now you're on the hook personally. So there's more things to do to keep your asset protection. And this is more attorney speak. I'm not an attorney. I just, read a few books. It's important, and I thought it would be good to talk about that.
And using the 1031 exchange, because it's a deferred taxes, right? How long can you keep doing it before you have to pay?
Yeah, so you can swap till you drop. The idea is, you defer that gain, and then 3-4 years later, you find a new property, and then you defer that gain. And if you have proper estate planning and have trusts set up and things of that nature, then what's beautiful is your heirs who will take over your property get what's called a step up in basis. Okay, so that means basically if at the end of the day you own $10 million in assets and the day before you die you sell those assets, well, chances are you've already depreciated those down to 0, and we're getting in the weeds here, but you would be subject to depreciation, recapture tax, and capital gains tax. Whereas if you held it until the day that you died, your heirs then step up to your basis of 10 million. So you were at a basis of 0 because you took all that depreciation, but your heirs now have a basis of 10 million, so all those capital gains get wiped out. Now that's why every time that there's a presidential election, the Democrats will say that they're going after two things: the 1031 exchange and the step up in basis. Because that's how generational wealth is built, right? You are wiping out sometimes 50% of taxes between capital gains, state, and then there's the net investment income tax as well. And so what happens is they have these families who think ahead, and they get proper estate planning, and they have living trusts, and they hire an accountant who knows what they're doing, they hire an attorney, and they're able to save half of their wealth just by proper planning. And not a plug, because I will tell you, if you want a good CPA, I'm a good CPA, but I'm not an experienced one with 1031 exchanges, but I know one who is. So.
Thank you.
This is for you and for any other wholesalers. What are you wholesaling? Is it just individuals, or is it from other LLCs or REOs?
Like wholesaling, like properties, like yeah. So mainly
Explain what wholesaling is.
So So wholesaling, you're basically selling a contract, not a house. So as a wholesaler, I'm probably an important point. I'm speaking to people about their house, and I'm offering to purchase it for a price. They'll sign a contract with me, and that contract is, let's say I have a contract to buy the house for $100,000, and I turn around and offer it to my buyers for $110,000. So then I can assign my rights to that contract to that buyer, and I'm getting the difference in price, right? So in this case, like the seller's getting 100 from my end buyer, I'm getting 10,000, which is the spread. So wholesalers selling contracts, not houses. They're generally on houses, generally, residential. You can do multifamily too. I think some people do like more commercial buildings, but I don't personally do that. It's a bit too specialized. Generally, better to do things that are like, just the median, like just normal houses, up to fourplexes or commercial apartments, but not really businesses.
And your sellers are folks who may be inheriting a house or going through a divorce, or like what are some other common problems that you solve?
So sellers always you're always fixing a problem. If there's no problem to fix, then a wholesaler is not like the person. Like if the house is nice, there's nothing wrong with it, they should use a realtor. And I tell all my sellers that, like straight up, if there's nothing wrong, sell it with a realtor. Generally, a wholesaler, they're working with houses that are like really dilapidated. They need a lot of work in them, so they're hard to sell. So you're normally dealing with that. You might be dealing with someone who's facing foreclosure. Maybe there's some title issues with the property that needs curing. Inherited properties, I buy a lot of inherited properties. Often we'll do the succession for them. So we speak to a lot of people that they inherited it, like 15 years ago, but it's never actually transferred. So, we'll do the succession as part of the sale. So you really just anyone with a problem property is generally what you're dealing with. And then you're getting the contract and you're selling the contract, not the house. And that's important. It's illegal to sell a house that you don't own if you're not a realtor with a contract. So you're getting the contract and you're selling your rights to that contract.
Which is where legislation has been proposed for wholesalers. A lot of times the National Association of Realtors will say that it is the illegal selling of real estate without a license, but the reality is you're not selling real estate, you're selling the contract, you're a principal in that transaction. So we were able to fight against some language last year in the Louisiana legislation because we were able to fight that, saying, hey look, we're principals in the transaction. So, and that's really important to stay in that boundary line of I'm selling a contract, not, hey, I have this house for sale.
Yeah, again, that's a two-sided marketplace, right? So the contract's that in the middle. So you're helping the seller, you're making a smooth transaction through this contract, and you're using that contract to then make life easy for your buyers so they get a nice deal ready to be renovated. That's where you're at.
Yeah, one sticky point about having a contract is that legally and technically, in order for it to be a contract, you have to have the intention and the ability to perform on that contract. Mm-hmm. So a lot of wholesalers, they couldn't buy the property if they had to, and they don't intend to. So technically, legally, it could be said that they don't have a contract.
They could.
People are doing it all the time.
Yeah,
They
so
could be
do
problems.
your due diligence on the front end.
Yeah, I mean it is. I mean it is hard. Look, I'm lucky in that like I am a buyer. I do buy houses. You know, I do have capital. So, and that's why, like I said, I have a branded approach to my marketing. I can brand hard because like I do buy. You know, but it is if you're branding too hard, saying I'm a cash buyer and you don't really have cash, it's just
Yeah.
That's where
just
some
keep that in
people will
mind. Yeah,
joint venture because they partner with someone who has what they don't have.
yeah, exactly.
So look, guys, I know we're over on time. I think this was an awesome discussion. Let's give it up for Aussie Steve. Yeah, so y'all feel free to hang out. We will be back here next month. First, tell a friend, and we'll see you next month. Thank y'all.
Everybody.